I think we have everyone's presentations loaded.
Thank you.
I have staff, applicants, and 2 members of the public. Michael.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm going to take these pictures of audio. Okay.
Yeah, we don't need them, right?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll get them for you.
Thank you.
Or, you know, just for safety's sake. We'll work with this one.
Just in case.
Yeah, just in case. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right, so you have to, oh, what? Maybe? There you go.
So are we ready to get started, or? Okay, welcome back everyone to our secondary location here. We'll start again with item 4, which is 429 University Avenue, to consider an appeal of the Director of Planning, Community and Environment's architectural review approval of a 31,407 square foot 4-story mixed-use building with parking facilities on 2 subterranean levels on an 11,000 square foot site. Environmental assessment, mitigated negative declaration, zoning district, downtown commercial, CD-C GFP. Okay, staff?
Good morning, Chair Guier, members of the Architectural Review Board. I'm Adam Peterson from the Planning and Community Environment Department. I'm here today to present the 429 University Avenue Mixed-Use Development Project. So today we're evaluating if the applicant or if the proposed changes address comments made by the City Council and if the project's headed in the correct direction. If the project's headed in the correct direction, staff recommends that the ARB continue the project to a date certain for final review and recommendation to the City Council. Alternatively, if the changes are not responsive to the City Council's direction, staff recommends continuing the project to a date uncertain. Really quick, I want to give an overview of the project. As you're aware, this is a 4-story mixed-use development. The building comprises approximately 31,157 square feet of new development. This is a major architectural review. It's located at 429 University Avenue. As you can see here, it's on the corner of University Avenue and Kipling Street. This project's been in the process for a while, so there is a previously circulated mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program. This slide takes you through the timeline and essentially the process that's been going on with this project. The key dates really are the last 3 dates, but really quick, what ended up happening is in February of last year, the project was approved by the director. It was then subsequently appealed. It went to City Council, and really, again, the last 3 bullets bring us to where we're at today. The City Council heard the project on November 30th of last year. They directed the applicant or the Architectural Review Board to review the project as it relates to the contextual based design criteria and then also the architectural review findings. The ARB held a hearing for the project in March of this year to evaluate a new design. The ARB made some comments regarding that design. The applicant then went out, had a new architect come in and do a new design of the building, and that brings us to where we're at today in evaluating this new design. So again, specifically, the council voted 9-0 to continue the project, to continue the appeal. They requested that the ARB evaluate the project for its compliance with the context-based design criteria and the architectural review findings. These are the specific findings that the council directed ARB to evaluate the project against. So these next slides illustrate the existing environment or the existing built environment. This is the view of the project site along University Avenue. What we're looking at, this is the project site, essentially sort of beige taupe white building. This is the project site, and then this is the building. The brick building is what the project would abut against. So this is the view along University Avenue. Over here we have Kipling Street. And again, this is the project site. This next slide illustrates the existing building along Kipling Street. And this is the building that would be replaced. This is the alleyway, sort of back behind the project site that leads into again, just the alley behind the building. So these next slides are going to walk you through the different designs that the ARB has considered, and essentially the process that's taken place to bring us to today. This is the first review. It's the second design. This is the third, fourth. This was the design that the ARB evaluated in March of this year. There were two options. Again, you'll see that there were some rhythm to the street facade with these entries. And this is sort of a rendering from March. This is option B that the ARB considered in March, in the rendering of that. And this brings us to the proposed project that you're evaluating today. What we have is a 4-story mixed-use building. The ground floor consists of commercial retail space. The second floor is commercial office. The third floor is residential space, and the fourth floor has a residential unit and also some office space associated with it. The building consists primarily of a glass facade with these concrete sort of floors. There are these wire mesh metal screens that are attached to the building. There's a series of entries along University Avenue. There's 5 entries along University Avenue. This is at the corner of University and Kipling. The residential unit on the third floor here is set back approximately 8 feet, and on the upper floor of the residence on the office is set back approximately 16 feet from the University Avenue property line. There is this eyebrow that is set back too from the University Avenue property line. These next slides, again, will walk you through the project and the designs that have been proposed along Kipling Street and alley. Again, this is the alley here that leads to the project site. So again, this is the design for option A that the ARB evaluated in March. And looking at what the project looks like from the view down Kipling Street, the rendering. And this is the project as proposed today. What we have is we have a garden wall here along the alley. The applicant's taken the HVAC equipment and relocated it underground here. They've stepped back the project from the alley and sort of have this carve out. The other thing that they've done is that they've installed bike parking here. These upper balconies, these terraces for the residential unit, they're set back 4 feet from the rear property line, and the residential uses here are set back 10 feet from the rear property line. This leads to a parking garage and subterranean parking below the project. But again, you're looking at predominantly sort of concrete and glass structure here on the project site. So based on this information, again, staff's recommendation is that if the applicant's design changes address the City Council's comments and are headed in the right direction, staff recommends that the project be continued to a date certain for final review and recommendation to the City Council, or if the applicant's design changes aren't responsive to the City Council's comments and head in the wrong direction, continue the project to a date uncertain. So thank you. That concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to answer any questions that the ARB may have.
Are there any questions from staff? Okay, guess not.
I believe the applicant has
In that case, the applicant, you have a presentation?
Jody, you're going to do should I do the timer? Or should I do the timer? I can do it. I can.
Yeah, if you could. I'm probably going to do slides.
Okay, I'll do the timer.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I mean, you could just stay here, Adam, and I could use the other one. Yeah.
Over the mouse or?
Yeah, no, I'll just do the slides. Just tell me to change. I'll try and pick up cues.
Good morning, Chairman Boyer and members of the Architecture Review Board. My name is Jaime Wong. I'm the applicant, and I'm fortunate to work with the architectural team of Mr. Joseph Belomo and Ms. Fatima Shah. Mr. Bellomo has been designing buildings for over 35 years and is the recipient of numerous awards, including the American Institute of Architecture's 2014 Birch Bark Award. For 32 years, Mr. Bellomo owned and lived on Kipling Street, just a block north of this project. He currently lives and works at 102 University, a building that he not only designed but also built. His many achievements in Palo Alto include the city parking structure on Alma Street, next to his office, and Bike Arc, the bicycle parking system you see in front of City Hall and throughout the downtown district. I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Joseph Bellomo and Ms. Fatima Shah, and they will show you what we have here.
Good morning. Thanks for your review and efforts as ARB members. I always appreciate the work you do. So, we've constructed a model that we think can assist with questions that you might have for the design. As Jaime mentioned, this is a cast-in-place concrete structure similar to structure we built at 102 University Avenue. It's an integral color. It's a slag mix, which is impervious to water, so you get no effervescence with this concrete. 2 levels of underground parking served by the alley. There's an entrance off the alley that you come in at. I wanted to point out also that we are beginning to even work on now construction logistics. We understand how important logistics here, construction logistics, will be to provide, safety and welfare for the surrounding retail.
Could you get closer to the mic, please?
Can you hear me now?
Go ahead, pull it a little closer to you. There you go.
Wow. Again,
Logistics.
construction logistics. Yeah, why don't we? So we start, but I just wanted to add, we are currently, we understand that construction logistics, traffic, concrete, truck movement, construction workers parking, it's very important that we address it as soon as possible. We want to make sure we are providing the retail users with the utmost care. We understand that this is a major project. It's an 18-month construction timeline, more than likely, and we understand how important it will be to honor and protect the retail users around this site. We had that opportunity to do that at our project at 102 University, and we did really well with it. We're going to actually encourage construction workers to carpool in. We'll make sure that we take care for the retailer. So, I love this. This is Palo Alto 1894. You can see the transit orientation with the train coming through. So it's always been, Palo Alto, we understand, it's always been transit oriented and still promotes that. This is looking down University Avenue. As you can see, some mixed use projects on the left-hand side. These are some of the, we've had the opportunity to work for some of these folks that have been University Avenue users, and of course, home to high-tech companies like these. So these are, some images of buildings around the site, around University Avenue. You can see there's a mix of heights that have been built, and a mix of different types of binoculars. This is a view looking basically down University Avenue and then to the right down Kipling Street. here's a program for you too that shows the mix of uses and kind of the amounts of square footage allotted to the building.
This is not shown, right? You can move to next.
First floor plan, you can see that we've incorporated bike parking along the alley. We've displayed some of the Kipling ground floor wall, and then we're showing along University, we're showing the possible positions of entries along that corridor. Second floor, as Pratima mentioned, as Mr. Wong mentioned, it's primarily office. Are we having a problem with this?
No, it's probably better if she does it.
Third floor plan, you want to go back to third floor? Here's the third floor plan that shows the 3 residential units, corridors leading out, setbacks, terraces along University and Kipling. You know, again, potentially floor plans could be, you know, moved or altered a bit, but here's what we think is layouts for the residential units that will work. Fourth floor, 1 residential unit on the 4th floor with adjoining office spaces and large terraces, exterior terraces that would be landscape, you know, landscape with potted trees and plants. Here's a image of sustainable elements of the building. As I mentioned, the concrete alone is sustainable since we're using a byproduct of the iron ore manufacturing slag. It's a great substitute and a great binder. We're substituting, taking 70% of cement out of the concrete mix and substituting with slag, which is typically, again, a byproduct of iron ore manufacturing and thrown in rivers around the world. You know, any questions that you might have later around the sustainable elements, we're pleased to answer those questions. Just some typical images of concrete. The solar screens do provide about 35% shading coefficient for the building, but still allow visual out of the glazing. We'll be using operable windows in all the spaces, as well as double insulated low E glazing. Here's some details of the screens and their use on a building in downtown. Here's looking at the alley view of the building. We're highlighting that alley with a garden wall, as well as setbacks and terraces along that avenue. Here's a view from a terrace, sitting on a terrace on one of the units looking northeast down University. Another view looking, this one's looking east. Right, Pratima?
Mm-hmm. So this is a Google Earth study. The model we have here is geolocated, so it's actual scale and size. So you can see with the context, aerial view with the context.
So you've used 10 minutes so far. How far are you? How far are you? Like halfway through?
I would go for another couple hours. No.
Did you mean
we're almost there.
Okay,
Yes,
5
almost.
5 minutes.
Got it. I'm glad you have that. Yeah. So view from the terrace.
From the proposed building, like 429 terrace, and you can see.
Here's some design responses.
Yeah.
Self-explanatory.
I would like to take. Thank
Pardon?
you. I would like to explain the design responses. Thank you, Joe.
Here.
Good morning. Good morning, ARB members, and thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for reviewing the project for us. I will be basically summarizing all the design responses, the challenges we had, and after reviewing the comments from ARB members, councils, appellants, and client, we tried to come to this solution, and I would like to summarize the. So, main concern that was always there is expressed by all the members was massing. How we try to assess that is, first thing we have reduced setback of the residential area by 250 square foot on the 4th floor. That recess the residential units 16 foot from the University Avenue, making it really like a 3-story building appearance from the pedestrian level. Then secondly, the setbacks. On ground floor, on Kipling side, we have setback approximately around 3 to 4. It's a slant setback, but to increase more pedestrian pathway, we have setback on Kipling. Second floor on the alley side is setback 10 foot. So this was the first time proposed on the second floor to reduce the perceived massive effect. We have terraces on second floor, which will act as breakout spaces for the offices. The third floor on University side and Kipling is set back around 7 feet, and on back it is, on the alley side it is set back 10 foot. The terraces are set back 7 foot. On 4th floor, on Kipling side, it's setbacks 40 foot, and on University 16 foot. On alley side, it is setback 10 foot, and the terrace setbacks 4 foot. The second main important change that we are proposing in this design is about the staircase tower, which always been massive in all proposed designs. In this design, we propose stairs from 3rd floor to 4th floor, set back 20 foot from the Kipling. So from Kipling, it will be only seen the 3-level staircase tower. It's not a tower, it's an integral part of the design, and forms, it has floor-to-floor glass walls for natural surveillance, and we have thin concrete floor plates. The elevator tower, as in earlier designs, was also located on the lot line on Kipling. We set it back 11 foot from Kipling, and we have a garden wall on the face of the alley side. The second, one more important construction methodology is really important. We are using cast-in-place reinforced cement concrete, which allows us to use thin concrete plates and more thinner floor plates to reduce the massing effect, and let us use floor-to-floor glass. I feel glass is the most humble and responsive material to the surroundings, that is reflects its surroundings. As there was a concern mentioned about being responsive to the surrounding materials and the context, I feel glass is the best possible material we can use because it has mere presence and it reflects the surroundings without replicating the materials that are existing in the surrounding buildings. About concrete porticos, we have 2 concrete porticos, one on Kipling and one on University Avenue. Concrete porticos demarcate the entries to the retail, and on Kipling side, they demarcate entry to the office and residential areas. Earlier, we proposed 2-story tall concrete porticos. Considering the scale of the street, we have reduced it to single-story concrete porticos. They demarcate entry, plus they act as a shear wall of the structure. Beautification of alley was another thing we considered. Alley not only acts as a service road, but we have terraces on all 3 levels, and we added beautiful garden wall on one of the sheer walls. Also, bike parking was permanent and short-term bike parking. Instead of using bike lockers, which are like enclosed boxes, we are using sculptures and sophisticated bike racks, and we are celebrating bike parking. The corner of the Kipling and alley we have opened on the first floor, which actually lets ventilation for the underground HVAC system, and that's the spot for the public art which we can use for. Next is west wall. Earlier design proposals had dead, I would call it dead west wall. We recessed third and fourth floor, part of the third and fourth floor west wall to create balconies that allows natural light and ventilation to residential units, and also gives relief to the west wall. We're also planning to do hanging gardens, like having creepers go along that trellis work. Then HVAC system, the conventional HVAC system, we usually have it on the rooftop, and it takes a lot of roof space and heats up, like adding heat island effect. Our attempt is to locate as much as heating equipment in the basement as possible. We are proposing radiant heating and cooling system for the third and fourth residential floor, and a conventional heating system for the retail and office. The HVAC is located in the basement. Another consideration for the context is, as I explained earlier, we are not limiting the context of this building to the building next door. We are thinking context, we are extending it to the University Avenue, starting right from the Alma Circle to Cowper, like on the broad scale. If you walk down from Alma towards Cowper, you see different building types, right from Varsity Theater to full glass Apple building. If you stand on the intersection of Bryant and University, you see 4 different types of buildings with 4 different types of...
Can we pick it up a little bit? We're really going...
One more minute and I'll conclude.
Okay.
You see 4 different types of building with different heights, different materials, different color. But that's always been beauty of Palo Alto, and we would like to celebrate it. Palo Alto has always been home to innovation for different companies, like technology company. So we are always proposing modern building or modern architecture, along with preserving our historic thing. I would like to consider these revisions, and I appreciate and thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you. Now, do we have I'll ask staff, do we have a presentation by the appellant? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Which one did you
It was final review.
That's what the time that they were doing, considering they took a half hour. To be fair.
He's back there watching
Right.
them, so.
Yeah.
Just do the, down on the bottom, there's the page.
Slideshow.
No, down here, I'll do it.
So, hi, I'm Michael Harbour here on behalf of the appellants of the project, and we've seen some of these photos here. These are the buildings slated for removal, and again, the city council has really encouraged you to and mandated you to follow the context based criteria, which looks at context and compatibility with adjacent development, including the streets, the appropriate transitions to the surroundings, and that we maintain the visual unity of the street. And some of the other issues that I know you're well aware of are the insufficient parking and congested traffic flow, especially on the narrowest street of downtown Palo Alto, which is Kipling, the Kipling Street Secondary Business District, and the recognitions of that. And then the mass and size of this building, and how that will affect this very unique street. So the motions from the May 4th, 2015 City Council meeting, indicated that a shadow study, a traffic study should be done. The mandate was the project should have design linkages with the overall pattern of buildings so that visual unit of both University Avenue and Kipling are maintained. That the building proposal go back to HRB and then be submitted to you. We've seen some of the comments from the HRB evaluation in the past, mostly related to size and massing, and the previous studies would permanently change. So this is the first design, which was deemed not compatible, and then next design was not compatible, and then here is our latest design. Although one can argue about the merits of the design itself, the building itself is pretty much the same size as the previous proposals. And here we have 4 stories plus an additional 6 feet of HVAC and the upper light well against the 1-story. Here's the alleyway. This is a view from Kipling and the 1-story building next to it. And it just does not, in my mind, meet the compatibility for and the appellant's lines for size and massing. It's still a colossal building on the narrowest street of downtown Palo Alto. And although, with due respect, I understand how we can talk about context from up and down University Avenue, but this very small street, Kipling Street, is very unique with its architecture and the most narrow street of downtown Palo Alto. So we need to find something in between, the proposal and this. So that, again, in our minds, the size is not compatible with the neighboring buildings, and this council asks that we look at minimizing the massing, and that the upper floors require setbacks on all sides as a transition to the one neighbor side. And here again is the viewpoint of 4 stories plus additional footage for HVAC and other equipment against the 1-story building here. So again, just to remind you what the Kipling Street Secondary Business District is, the HRB says it's an important resource for consultation about this. The terminus at University Avenue should be enhanced through tie-ins to the Varsity Theater, and efforts should be made to unify and complement the secondary districts. And this is from the Downtown Design Guidelines. Traffic studies, we feel, are still not quite adequate. The last study recommended removing 1 or 2 parking spaces along Kipling Street to improve visibility of traffic coming out of the alleyway. And again, moving 2 parking spaces on that very congested street that doesn't have a lot of parking really needs further discussion. And again, increased alleyway with traffic can discourage pedestrians and interferes with the existing businesses. And our comprehensive plan specifically states that we should be having businesses empty out onto the alleyway, be alleyway used for pedestrians, bicycles, and businesses. And the new structure doesn't actually have any business opening out onto the alleyway. And again, here's the entrance to the Yoga Works, which will be right across the street from that 4-story plus building. So in summary, we don't feel the applicant has adequately addressed all of the concerns from the May 4th, 2015 mandate, that there's still size, massing, and compatibility issues. The building size remains largely unchanged, and the 3rd and 4th floors have been, rearranged. We still feel mitigation in building size and mass are necessary. And again, I want to say that the appeal is not about the applicant's right to develop the property. And we've actually developed a constructive communication over the past several months, which I really want to, reach out and thank the Wongs, for that. Good people can disagree, and I really want you to know that. I mean, I like them, and I think that the feeling is mutual, but good people can disagree on how we view this. And we feel that the TDR doesn't get to automatically override these concerns whenever the applicant wants to apply them, that we still need to discuss the mass and the size, and that it's really imperative that we get this right for this street. There's no other street that really needs this type of overview as Kipling does, being this narrow street with the historical buildings. And if it was a different street, Waverly or Bryant, great big wide street, we probably wouldn't be here. But, you know, here we are. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, then, I'll open it up to the public. I've got a slew of people who'd like to talk, and we'll limit this to 3 minutes each. What I'll do is I'll mention one person, then the second person coming up. We'll start with Jeff Levinsky, and then after that it'll be Dora Suma. So, Jeff, if you'd...
But we have either the standing mic or the sitting mic here, and this is...
So I can move the slides.
Yep.
Just scroll?
Yep.
First of all, I have a handout. I have limited copies, but enough for the board members and for staff, I believe. So Dorian and I are here to address today about the question about the loading space that's come up. And the first question is a loading space required? The staff report says that it's classified as other uses, and this is a quote from the staff report, that since the it says that basically the municipal code doesn't say what to do for a mixed-use building. There's no direct requirement for mixed-use projects and loading spaces. And they're referring to Table 3. They point you to the other uses, all uses not specifically listed, say that they're to be determined by the director. But we respectfully disagree. We believe that the municipal code does address the issue of mixed-use loading areas. And I put up for you the code. This is 1852-040, and it specifically is about off-street parking, loading, and bicycles. And although it says calculation of required parking there under B, right below it says off-street parking, loading, and bicycle facilities requirements are applied here. And in red, when uses or activities subject to differing requirements are located in the same structure, that is a mixed-use building, the total requirement shall be the sum of the requirements for each use or activity computed separately. And then there's an except as, and I just put this here for completeness. All the except as are related to Table 1 and 1852-050 and so forth. They're all about parking, not about loading, so those don't apply. And then right down below, the code again addresses mixed uses, and it talks about where residential use is conducted together with or accessory to other permitted uses. Applicable residential requirements shall apply in addition to other non-residential requirements. And again, the exceptions only relate to parking, not to loading. So we feel that the code does address and require a loading area for this building. We ask that you inquire of staff why these particular laws weren't cited in the report. And we want to mention that these are exactly the same rules as you saw for parking. Now, the staff uses these in parking. They add up the use for the residential, for the retail, for the office use. They add those up to get the use, the required parking. It's exactly the same law for loading areas, so we feel it applies. I also want to mention the situation with building envelopes. Some of you may remember that from a few years ago. And in that case, staff reports did not mention the relevant laws that the council then made its determination based on. So it's important for the ARB, for the council, for the public to get the right laws into the staff report. Doria is going to speak next about the question about where the loading area goes. And Doria will speak there so I can do this.
Okay, so can the loading space be in the alley? That's the question. And staff says yes. And they, on page 8 of the staff report, they say that the loading space will be provided in the existing alley, which is actually quite narrow, and currently that alley behind 429 University is posted no parking at any time. Moving on, the code says specifically that loading areas cannot be on streets, off-street loading requirements. So, and then the code also goes on here to define what a street is, and it includes all alleys, of course. Looking at this rendering of the back with the alley, it's very hard to imagine where a proper loading zone, which is 45 feet long, would go behind this building that would not block the bicycle or the actual access to the garage under the building. It also would block probably any other truck or large vehicle from coming down the alley, which is one direction. So, and just to reiterate, the rear alley is considered by the municipal code to be a public street. I'll touch on policy T21, which the appellant talked about, which supports the use of downtown alleyways for pedestrian and bicycle use only. A really good example of this is right across the street, Centennial Lane, which instead of being a through alley for vehicles, the businesses have spilled out into the alley, and has cafes and restaurants, and pedestrians and bikes can get through. That's kind of what was intended, I believe, by the comp plan policy. So, in summary, one loading area is required for 429 University. It's 12 feet by 45 feet. It cannot legally be in the alley, we think, and the plans submitted probably then don't meet the code. So we think you should take that into consideration when you are reviewing this project. I'd also like to mention that Shani Kleinhaus from the Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society could not be here today and asked me to share her concern about clear glass parapets on the roof, especially when there is vegetation behind them, are very dangerous in terms of risks to birds. So thank you very much.
Okay, now we have Jan, I guess it's Jerry?
Terry.
Sorry. And Michael Harbour?
I already spoke.
Oh, okay. Okay, then Sam Arson.
My name is Jan Terry. I've been a resident of Palo Alto for 42 years. So I saw Palo Alto when the red lights were blinking at 8 o'clock at night. I was delighted to be living here as the city really became terrific in terms of its redevelopment. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Wongs to support their project. I feel they have had an extraordinarily long, expensive, and painful process. I think what they've ended up here is an improvement. So maybe the end result will be good for everybody. But I do have some comments that I want to make about these photographs. I visited this site several times since I told Elizabeth that I would speak on her behalf. And I don't think it gives its justice what the canopy does for the street. It's true that if you're standing here in front of the Varsity Theater looking back, you're going to see a pretty big building. But for the pedestrians walking on the street and walking across the street, the, quote, massive part of that building is mitigated by the beautiful canopies that they have. I'm hoping the city will reconsider the requirement to put ginkgos on Kipling, because I don't think that that's going to be able to grow and provide the kind of shade that they have. And the city requiring that those two big trees that are there to be taken out because they're destroying the street, apparently, should be reconsidered. But it's true this building is large, but my comment about Kipling is mostly this is a University Avenue building. It provides a real modernization of that street. We don't want that building to look like the Varsity Theater. I think that if you're going to be able to make a developer needs to be able to have a certain return on their investment, and you're not going to get it with a single or two-story building. So I was delighted to see that residences are available on here. I certainly wouldn't put palm trees on the top of that, but that's like regardless. This photograph also kind of implies that that cantilevered eyebrow there makes it look like it's further out, but in fact I don't think it is. I think it's 4 feet back from the third story. So Kipling, the biggest problem I see with Kipling is the old Zabibo restaurant is now Yoga Works, and you got your 70 classes with people coming and going, and it's true that a lot of people park away and then walk to it. But when I was there, people were struggling to get into those parking places on both sides of the street with these big, wide SUVs, and you don't have room for 2 more people to pass. And that people coming from this building will be coming and turning. Okay, so just in conclusion, I don't think this building is a problem, and I really appreciate it if it was supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Sam Arson, and then Beth Bunnenberg.
Good morning. My name is Sam Arsan. I do a lot of the leasing in downtown Palo Alto. I'm just a little surprised at how long it's been taken to do this, to go through this process. It's been probably over 3 years, and we're still discussing it. I think the Wong family and their architects have complied with all the rules and regulations that the city of Palo Alto has put on them, and I think it's about time that we move forward. The new design is very attractive and addresses many of the concerns and suggestions that the ARB and the City Council has provided. I've been leasing this building for several years. Unfortunately, for the past 3 years, all I've been able to do is offer short-term leases for tenants. And even though we found some, unfortunately, most of them have not been able to survive. They've not been able to invest in their businesses because of the short-term nature of the leases. Obviously, the rapid turnover, all the turnover that we're having is not healthy for the city, for the tenants, for the neighbors, for the landlord, and all the owners in the downtown area. I think the new building is very well designed and attractive, and will be a welcome addition to this part of the University Avenue that has kind of suffered, and obviously the downtown area. I currently have several highly desirable prospects looking in the downtown, and specifically in at this location. All of those prospects will add vibrancy to downtown and help improve business for the surrounding retailers, and provide more tax revenues for the city. I respectfully ask that you approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then we have Beth Bunnenberg and Herb Burrock.
All right, hello, I'm Beth Bunnenberg, and I am a member of the HRB, Historic Resources Board, but today I'm speaking as an individual. This, as you know, is an extremely important corner of our downtown, which has maintained its historic, walkable, people-friendly variety of historic and non-historic, but compatible structures. The proposed structure is still quite massive. However, I am appreciative of Mr. Bellomo's many architectural contributions to Palo Alto, and see that he is capable of very careful planning. The new design is important and is improved by taking some of the mechanical equipment down to the basement. The added ground floor retail spaces are a big improvement. But I do wish to call attention to the necessity of protecting the nearby buildings, both on Kipling and the nearby Burge Clark that's to the west of this building. You can picture the bean store, which has the brick front. Then next to it is a brick store, is a Burge Clark building with a beautiful tile facade. This building and then the Swain Music Building have beautiful tile facades. The Swain Music Building is now most remembered as the first Apple store. Who can forget the people who put hundreds of post-its on those windows when Steve Jobs died? This was received worldwide attention. How can we ensure protection during construction? Things like flying debris, crane and demolition errors. Please, please find a way to protect our history. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have Herb.
Good morning, Chair Breer and Commission and board members. Earlier, one of your members recused herself because of an undefined accusation of bias. I believe that sets a dangerous precedent. If someone wants to be recused for bias, it should be from actual bias rather than just an accusation, and the bias should be stated on the record, just as the other commissioner stated his conflict of interest in the record. I believe this project is too big for a particular reason, and that is that it includes in its allowable floor area a transfer of purported development rights for a demolished building. I don't believe that demolition of a building has the same standard as rehabilitation, and I have provided you both by email and at places information which I believe constitutes substantial evidence that demolition and rehabilitation are two different things. The attachments, which is in the hand-delivered placements letter, the language in the boxes is a little bit difficult to read, but if you have it obliquely to the light, I believe you can do that. And when this comes to the council, I'll make an effort to see that it's more easily readable. The suggestion that I would make to you is that you have asked the applicant to redesign the project by deducting from it all that incorrect applied floor area, whether it's from the 340 University building or the others. I don't happen to know the other addresses as to whether they were rehabilitated or they also was demolished. But that seems to me the way to meet the appellant's concerns about size and also my concerns about misapplying the code in this case. I see that you have a model there which you can see as if you're flying from an airplane looking down. And as architects, you didn't even need that model. You can do it from the drawings. But just to give you a comparison for future large projects, which public might be interested in seeing what it looks like. This model is at 3/32 scale. The recommendations that I've seen, which makes sense to me, that for the public will be a 1/4-inch scale. That's 2 2/3 higher in each dimension, or 19 sizes in volume. And for the public to look at something, it would be needed at table height so they could see it at ground floor at eye level, and without other buildings in context, just seeing what you walk along the street. And I have suggested that for one of the bigger Stanford projects, perhaps the hospital, but the council never picked up on that. But I hope that, but I do appreciate Mr. DeLome providing this, because we rarely see models of that kind. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That's the last speaker card I have. Is there anyone else that would like to address this board? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Q, you want to start?
Alex, you don't want to start?
Didn't I start last time we did this? I can start if you want.
All right, go ahead.
So, I should do disclosure first. Is that I did talk to Elizabeth Long by phone. We were discussing whether or not to meet. And after reviewing with staff, and staff reviewed it with city attorney, who decided not to meet. So, so I do want to thank the architect and new design. I did want to say I have a fair bit of criticism of the design, but I think I did want to acknowledge at the very beginning your sheet A3.7 with all of your sustainable design features. And I just want to say that these are very important, and they will become more important as the architectural profession goes forward. And really thinking about environmental impact of buildings and to reduce the impact. So I think this is all very important. My take on it at the moment, and just where the project appeal is that the council is really looking at the compatibility findings for the context. And if you watched all of the hearings, they sort of defined the context as the immediately adjacent buildings and not from University Circle to Cowper. And I think we all think all the architects acknowledge that there's a wide diversity of buildings and sizes and floor areas downtown. The council direction was actually to focus this very narrowly, and so I have. So my comments are really focused on that, and so I think at the moment my recommendation is for this that this is not compatible with the immediate adjacent properties. I think I brought some images of other buildings, which I've never done before in an ARB, and the images are not telling you what, I'm not telling you to do what I'm going to show you on the images. I'm just giving you like one example, and I'm sure you guys are very talented. I'm sure you could come up with better examples than I have. But this is something that I came up with just off the top of my head. So you're going to show the first.
You want Ivy or Matheson?
Yeah, there we go. So this is like 300 Ivy in San Francisco. It's about a year or two old. The architect was David Baker. And it's on one of the old freeway off-ramps sites in Hayes Valley. And so it has a concrete structure that's exposed, as you guys are sort of proposing here. But it has, it's like board form concrete. I think in one of the later slides they've got vine pockets, so it's actually all planted. At the moment, that it doesn't really show in this particular photo, but it's all covered with like a creeping fig, so that there's some greenery. Actually, you can stay on this first. Yeah, on the first slide is fine. Yeah. The glass is set in from the street so that there's depth to the building, and there are awnings that project out. There are integral benches down at the bottom that can work on the inside or the outside. There are the recesses on the side street are enough to fit outdoor tables for a restaurant. And the design is suitable enough where it could be one tenant. At the moment, it's mostly half of it's like a restaurant, and there are 3 retail storefronts and an ATM. But it could be, and they're designed so that it could be separated or it could be combined all at once. And I think that's important from the council's point of view. They're looking at the 25-foot module of University Avenue. And I know that you've added one extra storefront, and you've added the portals to try to give it scale. I'm saying here that there's yet another level of design that could be added to the project to make it more in character with the existing. So our code requires you to have a minimum amount of recessed area, and I think if I understand your plans right, you've put it all on. You have the recessed storefronts on the doors on University Avenue, and you have kind of the angled wall on Kipling. And I'm saying that if you can break it down more, and it can be more pedestrian scale, because right now it's like floor to ceiling glass, and which could be great depending on the tenant, but it may not be depending on the tenant as well. Also, so we can go. Yeah, we can move it forward.
Oh, I don't think it'll do the.
Oh well, then. Oh, okay. So let's go back. So.
Oh wait. Oh, it'll go through the ones that.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
Can you go? There should be more. Yeah, that's fine. It is, and there's one more after that. Yeah. So this is also again David Baker in Healdsburg. 3-story hotel with ground floor retail, but they've modulated the massing. and subtle color differences. It has balconies that would relate, like metalwork balconies that would relate to the Birch Clark buildings across the street. And on the ground floor, there's enough, if you go maybe like back a slide. Yeah, that's fine. So you can't, it's hard to tell here, but there's enough wood doors on the ground floor with the various storefronts that the tenant could actually change something. So if you have a different tenant come in and want to paint the doors a different color to distinguish themselves from the adjacent tenants, they can. If you have some wood and color, and also if you step the massing into smaller pieces, you'll be more compatible with the sort of Victorian era houses, which have generally narrow storefronts and a variety of colors. And our code requires design linkages, and so I'm looking for something like that. It doesn't have to be this example, but at the moment I don't see the design linkages. So that's where I am on this project. And then I would say, though, I do like the increased setbacks. I think that helps. I think I'm wary about your argument about glass dematerializing the building. My take on it is most glass is fairly reflective and fairly dark, especially when you use a lot of it. I think on your project you have the deep overhangs, which would help a lot from an energy code point of view to allow you to do more with the glass. So I think that should be acknowledged. It can look great at night when the building's illuminated, but in the daytime, to me it's like too dark and too reflective, and I'm looking for other things in the building design to draw attention, for people to see. They're looking for filigree, and it's abundant in this particular block. In other areas of downtown, I would say this is fine. This would be fine, but on this particular block of Kipling and University Avenue, I think this is not enough.
Okay, Q.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. So to follow up with Board Member Liu's comments, well, first I'll also disclose that while I was not in contact with Mrs. Wong, the architect did reach out to me, and I met with him twice to see the design for the new building. I have several comments that are kind of all over the place, but I think I still don't think we're doing this building justice with the way that it's been presented today. I think there's still opportunities to provide context drawings or some site sections so that we really understand the true context and not just the immediate neighbors to the left and the right. And I don't mean more context all the way down to Alma, but just along this block, I think there are important buildings that we haven't touched on today that we've touched on in the past, such as that other 4-story building on University Avenue. My concerns are similar to Board Member Liu's. I think there's still an element of rhythm or pattern that could be presented in this building. One of the comments that I made last time that was somewhat addressed is the breaking up of that pedestrian scale along University Avenue. And while the portal that's introduced, it helps, it's better than without the portal. I think there was still an element of design in previous designs where it really felt like there were two separate buildings, or perhaps the building was broken up even more. I think the building as it is still reads as one large building, and although there may be divisions in the glass with the mullions or even the portal, that you still sense it as one big structure. Some other comments that I have are I think it's great that this building plays off of the 102, 106 university buildings that you've already constructed. Having gone by there a couple more times, I think the design and the scale of those buildings is a little bit more appropriate there along Alma Street and along the train tracks. But the building to me still feels a little bit mysterious. And I think I only point that out because this building, I think, in this part of the downtown needs to be much more welcoming, inviting, and respectful of its immediate neighbors. And I think you're making an attempt to do that. But I just wanted to stress that once more. Because of such elements as the large use of glass could appear dark at times. And so I just wanted to make sure that the glass is going to be extremely visible to the inside. To me, the eyebrow on that fourth story, the fourth floor, although it's been brought back, I don't think it's been brought back enough. I think if it were brought back to closer to the setback of the third floor, that it would read as a less massive building. I understand that you hardly see the fourth floor from this view, but I think the cantilevering of the floor still makes the appearance that the box is big up on that level. So I think there was a lot of information that could still be provided, such as the specifications on the glass, the connection details of how the screen attaches to the building, how the glass attaches to the concrete. I'm sure what you have in mind is very similar to the 102, 106 university buildings, but I think it would be helpful to see that and to see maybe if there have been any revisions since what you've done previously, since there has been some development in the past 10 years. Some other small concerns that I have are with the floor plans. The bicycle parking is right in front of the trash enclosure, and I just worry that if there's a lot of trash that piles up, are people still going to be able to get in and out of their bikes, and the beautiful bike rack system that you have there. I also think about the retail space and the office spaces, how they're going to bring their trash out. And trash is kind of a big item, especially in the downtowns, and how are they going to bring that down? Are they going to go past the bicycles? Are they going to cover up the bicycle parking? Will all the trash fit in that enclosure? And then while I'm appreciative of keeping the shower stall for users of the building or perhaps bicyclists right next to the trash, is that really the best place for it, was another question that I might ask. And then moving up to the residential floor plans, I think the floor plans still need some work. There are some, in my opinion, awkward spaces and some fairly large bedroom spaces. And I only say that because if the bedrooms were maybe reduced in size, would that help to reduce the mass of the building, was a thought that I had. I think the kitchens still lack windows. There are a lot of bathrooms without natural light and natural ventilation. I know there are ways to accomplish that, but I might be curious to see in more detail how that is accomplished down the line. The office units don't seem to show any kind of a kitchen or at least a communal sink. I haven't been to an office space that doesn't have a little kitchen, so where is that going to go? How is that going to work? But overall, I don't think the project has stalled or is headed in the wrong direction per se, but I think it does need a little bit more refinement before it can be presented to the City Council. I know there's still some items that need to be accomplished, such as the HRB review, shadow study, and photometric study. I'd be interested in seeing the photometric study because of the large use of glass. And I think there are some other 3D perspectives that would really help to justify the design intent of the building and the careful ways in which you're trying to reduce the massing and step the building back. There's some other angles of views that were presented previously that weren't presented with this latest design that I think would be helpful for us and the public as a whole to kind of compare and see how the design has transitioned to where it is now. And then maybe in closing, I'm curious to understand the architect's attempt at the transitioning. Other than the massing, what other things can you say about the building? That you had in mind as you were designing this to to ensure that it was transitioning with the neighbors, whether it's on University or Kipling. I just feel like there was a little bit of explanation maybe that was left out, or that maybe you could speak to, so that we could better understand the design intent of that. But all in all, again, I don't think it's ready to present to the council quite yet, but I do think it is headed in the right direction. I think there are some refinements that could be made, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Okay, well, I mean, one of the reasons we're here is because of all the things that have transpired with the city council, everything else. Unfortunately, the building, the way it is now, I understand the concept of a lighter building with the air, with glass and everything else, but to me, some of the earlier designs made more of an effort to break the modules up to make it relate more to the to University Avenue. Also, it is still perceived as, to me at least, as a singular entity that's pretty large for what it is. And the problem is, the reality of it is, if you compare it to all the buildings on the street, that's true. It may begin to fit closer into context. But the problem is just the way it's gone back and forth, is that at this particular location, there's a lot of resistance to it. And one of the resistance is also coming from, or at least the city council wants more input. I think it could be modified, but I don't think the screens help the modulation of it. The third floor, I think, is too large. It doesn't make any attempt to step back. Again, I mean, I agree with my fellow board member. I'm looking at some of these things, and I mean, I'd love to be in a residence where the small bedroom is 18 by 18. There's one that's 20 by 17. There's one that's 29 by 21. To me, those are large bedrooms. And I understand that, I mean, if you do whatever you want, that'd be a great size for a bedroom. But the reality of, you're in the middle of downtown on a limited site. So maybe one of the, things that might need to change is reduction of those bedrooms a little bit, which would allow the third floor to get a little smaller in scale and actually be allowed to step back a little further. The eyebrow, which on the fourth floor does allow for a great patio up on top, but I think it's one of the things that I've said from the very first time we received these, is that most of the design started out with a large eyebrow on the top. Now, I'm not against the concept of an eyebrow. In fact, I like it, but in this particular case, it's probably the easiest way to keep the functionality of the building and yet still, from a perceived mass, bring it back. I mean, it's the biggest thing may be, it may not be the masterpiece that you want it to be, but if it fills all the criteria and gets built, I think you're a step ahead of that than coming up with something like this that is having all these difficulties. I think I probably, most of the other people have already said what I've indicated. The smaller items, the sheer wall to ceiling, or I should say floor to ceiling glass, I'm just not a big fan. I'd like to see more of the smaller modulation, whether it be 4 bays or 5 bays, I don't really care. But the just a large wall of glass, I don't think is in context with what the is in that area. I guess probably based on what my other two colleagues, it's probably that the design is going in the right direction, but still needs some work. Is that pretty much the way we're looking at it, or?
Well, I mean, I definitely don't think it's ready to just hand over to the council at this point.
Well, I agree, but what I'm saying is, we've been asked to basically pick 1 or 2, or items 1 or 2. Actually, 2 has 2 portions to it, 2 sections to it. So it.
Why don't we read them since we...
Sure. Okay. So number 1 is basically, if the applicant's design changes address the city council's comments and are heading in the right direction, continue the project to a date certain or a final review and I should say, in recommendation to the city council. Or, number 2, if the applicant's design changes are not responsive to the city council's comments and are heading in the wrong direction, continue the project to a date uncertain or recommend that the staff prepare findings for the city council's denial of this project. So I'm leaning more for the fact that specifically what we were asked to look for as instructed by the city council, this doesn't go there.
That's
now,
my,
I may not,
that's my,
I may not agree with exactly what their findings are, but that's not what I'm shooting for. I'm shooting for, we've been instructed, we work at the, at the request of the city council, we've been asked to see the context of this area and what they're looking for, this isn't it.
That's my take on it too.
Okay.
This as is not it. Yeah.
Okay, so then, if that's the case, then that brings it to number 2. So it's if the applicant's design changes are not responsive to the city council's comments and are heading in the wrong direction, continue the project to a date uncertain or recommend that the staff. So which one of those 2? I'm guessing you're willing to give it another shot or just say, no, we don't think it's going to get there. That's basically the 2 options.
Yeah, so I only hesitate because I don't think it's heading in the wrong direction per se, but yeah.
So can I get a motion from someone or?
Okay, so it sounds like.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth, but it looks like we've settled on item 2. Or,
right, and I think I think where the project, I mean, they're making an effort to increase setbacks and whatnot. So, I mean, that would indicate to me that would be the first, is to just continue it to a date uncertain. And it seems to me that this, I think the caution that I have in this is that you could make a lot of refinements in here. And I think at the I think I understand the appellant's concern is mostly mass. So,
or perceived mass,
right?
Yeah.
So if they may be able to do lots of refinements and whatnot.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, I suspect the appellant was not going to be happy unless it's actually smaller, right? Not just the perceived.
Right, I understand that.
Perceived mass. And
but
so
then, we're the ones making the decision.
I know,
so
I know, but I think we've talked about this project so many times, and it doesn't, the perceived mass is not, in my take, the perceived mass hasn't really gotten smaller.
I agree.
Yeah, so I just wanted to underscore that I think that's I think on the track record on this project is that it seems to me headed towards the denial of the project. But I think there are ways of making this project better. So that's why I want to give it one more.
Okay, now then the question is, or maybe so we don't drag this on again, can we get findings both ways?
Oh, that's interesting.
You're asking at the next hearing?
At the next hearing, I want to either do up or down and not continue it again because, and I've been in hearings where we want to deny something, but we don't have findings to deny, so we have to continue it. And I think everybody wants to get this thing moving one way or the other.
But this project is a little different because it's an appeal, so the council is going to decide. They're just asking for our input, so we're not necessarily making a regular motion.
Yeah, but we still need findings, apparently. Right?
You are making a recommendation to council, which is based on your findings.
Right. So we do need findings for both.
Okay.
And then we can pick up or down.
I thought, when we had the last I think maybe in the first meeting after the council, we had a very specific list that we were just responding to the council's items. I thought that's all that we were doing, but I could be wrong.
No, very true. We did sort of narrow down on the council's specific direction. and we can sort of refocus back to that.
Yeah, I think I would go back. I think for the next hearing, I would go back through and.
But still, then, but that still does. At the end of that,
the council still has to make the.
No, but I mean,
has to meet the
if we
findings.
decide, whichever way we decide, whether it does or doesn't follow that, don't we need findings either way? So if we have findings to approve and we find that the changes haven't really met that criteria, then we need to continue it again because we don't have findings to deny.
I think maybe part of the difficulty is that the building has gone through such a drastic design change. You know, if we were with the original design, we would have already had the findings. I mean, we already recommended approval of the project.
I know.
But to me, I almost question, should this be a new application, because it's a brand new building. It's very difficult to compare it to.
Well, either way, I mean, that's just, how we go about doing it. I just want to reach a completion next time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Then
at least in the way it's, I've always been in any of these things, you need findings to do either one.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had situations where, if it's at we're not really sure how it's going to end up, I'm asking for findings both ways, so we can find to approve or the findings to deny.
So I think staff understands the intent.
I mean, I know it's a little bit
of where
more
you're
work for
trying
you,
to go.
but it's probably easier for everybody concerned than to have to do it again.
Can I have some comments? May I speak or not yet?
Hang on a second, let's
Sure.
Yeah, so I understand your intent, and we
Okay.
will ensure that we're able to come to a conclusion at the next hearing.
Okay.
And
So seeing this as somewhat more informal, go ahead. What?
So we do allow usually the applicants to have closing comments. Is it? My recollection is this after we make a motion. Sometimes, or I don't know. But we have to close if you close the public hearing. We haven't closed the public hearing.
Yeah,
technically,
if we
yeah,
did,
so-
we would want to have closing comments from both the applicant and the appellant.
Right.
And it's usually timed too.
So we need a motion then.
Okay, so I will motion that we do staff recommendation number 2, right? That that we continue the project to a date uncertain, and for staff to prepare findings for approval and denial. So this is a modified number 2.
Okay, can I get a second on that? Okay. Can I second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll second it then. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Nay.
Okay, so it passes 2-1.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Wong, for the record, and I am the applicant. At first, I understand how you may think that this is a new project, but there are several reasons why I do not think it's a new project. You know, the size of the building, the layout, and all of the inside of the building stays the same. And what basically is that we were trying to find a new look that would attract both the current needs of retailing, as well as to make the building look lighter and more attractive. I think this is an amazing, beautiful building, and I would not be surprised if it gets many awards after it's been built. So it cannot be a new project because of the way that the city codes are done. This project would
Well,
never...
wait a minute, Elizabeth, let me just interrupt. It was just a thought on his part. It isn't a new project, we've agreed, considering what we just did, it's still the same project with a redesign, so don't worry about that aspect of it.
Right. So then my second concern is that this project, even though our prelim ARB was in 2013, before 2013, we before coming to you with a project, we had already had approval from the city and the city attorney's office for the TDRs and the size of the building. So we couldn't just come up with the size of the building and give it to you without having all that background squared away with the planning as well as the attorney's office. And it was done in prescribed manner with approvals and signatures from planning and the attorney's office.
Again, the reality is that nobody's arguing that.
Okay, so I'm saying that this project really began in 2011, okay? And in my third point, which is the thing that would help us right away, is that, you know, we have no access to the way that we had access to the ARB before. You know, when we had, when Mr. Randy Pop was part of the ARB, he met with us and we said, oh, how about if we do this? And he said, no, no, no. And then he would say, yes, do this, you know. And so it was a process, because here we come back next time and you will say no again. I mean, how many times did we change it? In my recollection, this project, this is the 8th revision. This is very, very unfair to the public. You know, many people think that the city is, you know, they're very unhappy. You know, I mean, it's not just me, but the whole process. This is insane for it to go on from 2011 to 2016. So there we are. We have no clear directives, okay? A traditional building will not work because retailers are not wanting that. When I show them this plan, they're excited about it. When I show them other plans, they will not rent the building. So it is a disservice to, and I have doing retailing in Palo Alto for the last 20 years. I know this building, you know, I'm very familiar with a lot of other tenants that we have. So you're throwing us out in the freeway without, you know, you can't say, just come back next time and give me all this. I mean, this is insane, the amount of money that we have spent on this. You don't realize, but every little word that you give us, you know, it spins us to do a lot of work. Okay, so I am saying, you know, thank you for letting us come back. Okay, the problem is that, you know, we need to talk to you to find out what is it that we need to do in order to make this, you know, palatable to you. The appellant will never be satisfied. There's no way that I can satisfy the appellant.
Okay, well, let me answer that.
Sure.
Basically, when Randy was chair, it's usually the way it works is the chair is the one that sort of sets the tone for the board. Okay, Randy had a different opinion about it than I do. My opinion is whatever comment I'm going to give you or any applicant is going to be in a public venue. And so all the comments we have here, I can't imagine if you met with me privately, I would say anything different than I do in a public venue like this. Because the other way to look at it is the perception works both ways. Somebody who is against the project is going to say, gee, it seems awfully fishy. They're meeting privately with members of the board. I wonder what's going on. So it's a perception both ways. And as far as some of the things about I've done retail on enough that that ground floor and that first floor, the interior space hasn't changed that much. Almost all of these go-arounds have been based on the skin of the building. So I can't see that a tenant coming in is going to have a whole lot of heartburn about what the skin of the building looks like, because the reality of it is they want to be in downtown Palo Alto. Not so much, ooh, I want to be in this building because it's got a glass facade as compared to this building that's got a breakup of 4 or 5. So I disagree with that.
May I respond?
Sure.
Okay, we are the landlords for the Apple store, and Apple will never rent, other than this. We have been in contact with other retailers, very high-end retailers. In our very first submittal, we had a Tesla in the window because it was, because it was one of the reasons it was a possible showroom for a Tesla. And when you have retailers like that, they're not, Amazon, Google is not come up with a regular retail space, okay? They want to showcase their car synchronized with their home. You know, it's gonna be a big open showroom. And, you know, a showroom that can showcase their items at night when they're closed, as well as during the day. So,
Okay.
you know, really, an old retail space will never work. And one of the things that I like about this building is that Mr. Belomo took away the concrete, you know, it was like a wall to prevent people from going in. And yet, he retained the 20-foot rhythm, so that in every 20 feet, he has an entry.
Okay, let's leave it there. I'm not going to sit here for the next hour and you and I argue back and forth on this. We just have a difference of opinion. You have the ruling. I mean, that's why one of the reasons why I wanted it, you know, a solution one way or the other next time. And I suspect what's going to happen is if it goes against you, you're going to, you know, appeal it to the city council, or at least go to the city council for their ruling anyway, and it will get shifted to that.
Well, the item is that the city council relies heavily on your input.
Okay.
And if you vote against it, I don't have a chance in city council. That's the nature.
I can't help that. You know, I'm put here, or we're put here, and I mean, it's a shame that, you know, only 3 of us are here, rather than 5 of us, but that's just the way it worked out. You know, we do what we see is best in our, I mean, we're all licensed architects.
That's not true. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, okay, all right. Okay, 2 of us are licensed architects. Okay, I didn't.
Three of you.
Well, I meant of the 3 of us here. Okay, but anyway, we all have architectural training, and we're doing what we've been asked to do by the city, and that is to give our recommendation. And so, you know, I've got 40 years of experience in architecture, so this isn't the first retail building I've seen or that I've designed or anything else. So I'm giving you my honest opinion based on what I think is best for the city.
And the council disagrees with the ARB on numerous occasions.
Right.
On the bicycle bridge.
Yeah.
We've been voted down on various occasions, so
they've
I
disagreed with us
automatically.
many times, so I wouldn't. Yeah.
So I do want to mention that, you know, if you think that you're going to get the appellant to disappear, it will never happen.
So I can't talk for the appellant, and I'm not going to.
Right.
So I'm.
Yeah, it's totally not going to happen because the appellant.
Again, like I said, why don't we just leave it at that? I'm not going to go there and argue about what the appellant or what you may do.
We do need to ask the appellants if they have any additional comments.
Okay?
No additional comments.
Okay. All right, then we're adjourned.